You won't believe how a lawmaker handled this shocking confrontation. Jasmine Crockett, on the right side, appeared startled as a man allegedly threw up white supremacist hand signs outside her office during a congressional workday. What happened next wasn't just about one protester. It exposed broader concerns about rising threats against elected officials and highlighted the challenges of political courage in a polarized environment. Before we dive into the details of this disturbing incident that prompted Capitol Police involvement and sparked national conversations about hate and security, hit that subscribe button. This story touches on constitutional rights, personal safety, and the real-world impacts of inflammatory rhetoric in American politics today. The Cannon House office building is one of those iconic places where the day-to-day work of American democracy unfolds amid the spaces between high-profile votes and public hearings. Long, identical corridors are lined with congressional offices. Staffers hurry between meetings, juggling briefing books, laptops, and endless cups of coffee. Tourists occasionally wander through on guided tours, snapping photos of the historic architecture. The entire complex carries this unique blend of profound historical significance and everyday bureaucratic routine. It's an environment designed for professionalism, where even the fiercest policy disagreements are meant to be resolved through established procedures and the measured language of legislative debate. That's precisely why an incident reported in late November 2025 felt so profoundly jarring and out of place. According to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a Texas Democrat known for her outspoken style, an individual showed up at her Washington, D.C. office and made what she described as white supremacist threats and hand gestures. The Congresswoman shared the news in a public statement, emphasizing that everyone was safe thanks to the quick response from U.S. Capitol Police. She framed the event as part of a larger pattern of escalating political hostility, noting that threats seem to intensify whenever she speaks out on issues like corruption, constituent rights, or accountability. Crockett's statement highlighted the personal toll such incidents take. Some folks have questioned why I need security, she wrote. This is why. Every time I speak truth, stand up for my constituents, or call out corruption, the threats get louder and more dangerous. She connected the event to broader national rhetoric, criticizing inflammatory language from political leaders that she believes fuels division and puts targets on the backs of public officials. When the President of the United States spreads hate and lies, when he targets his political opponents, he is putting a literal target on our backs, she added, calling for unity over division. The incident quickly drew widespread attention across media outlets, from local Texas reports to national coverage. Progressive voices and civil rights advocates rallied in support, viewing it as evidence of the ongoing dangers faced by Black elected officials and women in politics. Organizations emphasized the need for stronger protections against hate-driven intimidation in public spaces. Meanwhile, some conservative commentators questioned the details, suggesting skepticism about the claims or comparing it to past controversial incidents, though no evidence emerged to contradict Crockett's account. Capitol Police confirmed they responded swiftly, investigated the matter, and determined there was no ongoing threat. A follow-up statement from Crockett's office thanked supporters for their concern and reaffirmed her commitment to her work. I will not be intimidated, she declared. I will continue to show up for the people of Texas' 30th Congressional District. But we cannot pretend that this is normal. When leaders promote hate, hate shows up sometimes right at our door. This event also reignited discussions about the surge in threats against members of Congress. Official reports have documented thousands of such cases in recent years, underscoring the heightened risks in an era of intense partisanship. For Crockett, a former trial lawyer who entered Congress with a reputation for direct confrontation, the incident reinforced her national profile as someone unafraid to address tough issues head-on. In interviews and statements, she expanded on the broader implications, the normalization of extremist symbols, the selective outrage over free speech, and the responsibility of leaders to condemn hate unequivocally. 3 days later, Crockett elaborated in public comments, stressing that such threats aren't isolated but part of a troubling trend. This cannot become the norm, she insisted. She pointed to the role of top-down rhetoric in emboldening bad actors, while vowing to keep advocating for her district and against what she sees as corrosive influences in politics. The fallout prompted reviews of security protocols in congressional buildings, with calls for better guidelines on handling threatening behavior. Civil rights groups issued statements decrying the incident as a reminder of persistent racism in political spaces. Even as debates raged online and in the media, Crockett's supporters praised her resilience, while critics debated the context and motivations. In a subsequent town hall in her Dallas district, constituents asked how she coped with the fear such events inspire. Crockett was candid. Fear is real, but giving into it would send the wrong message. If I back down, it tells others that intimidation works, she explained. More importantly, she noted, these threats affect everyday people without the protections afforded to elected officials, workers, students, neighbors facing hate without recourse. This incident, while alarming, also showcased Crockett's determination. She transformed a moment of vulnerability into a platform for discussing safety, accountability, and the need for principled leadership across party lines. As threats against lawmakers continue to rise, stories like this serve as stark reminders of what's at stake in our democracy, not just policy wins, but the basic right to serve without fear. If this account of how Jasmine Crockett responded to a reported hate-driven threat and turned it into a call for greater awareness resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth stories on moments of resilience in politics. Drop a comment below. How do you think leaders should address rising political threats and hate? Share this with anyone who believes in standing firm against intimidation. Your engagement helps highlight the stories of courage that define our times. You won't believe how quickly political tensions can escalate into real-world threats against elected officials. In late November 2025, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a bold Texas Democrat known for her sharp commentary and unyielding stance on accountability, reported a disturbing incident at her Washington, D.C. office. An individual allegedly appeared and made what she described as white supremacist threats and hand gestures. This event, while resolved without injury thanks to a swift Capitol Police response, sparked widespread debate about the safety of lawmakers, the impact of heated national rhetoric, and the rising tide of political hostility in America. Before we unpack the details of this alarming encounter and its broader implications for democracy, hit that subscribe button. Stories like this reveal the human cost behind the headlines, reminding us that free speech has limits when it veers into intimidation, and that courage in public service often comes at a personal price. The Cannon House office building stands as a cornerstone of American legislative work, where the machinery of government hums daily. Endless corridors echo with the footsteps of staffers rushing to meetings, arms full of documents and coffee. Members of Congress dart between committee rooms and floor votes, while tourists occasionally glimpse the inner workings of power. The atmosphere blends solemn history with the grind of modern bureaucracy. Professionalism reigns, and even fierce debates filter through rules and decorum. That's what made the incident on November 20, 2025, so unsettling. According to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's official statement, an individual showed up at her D.C. office and engaged in behavior she characterized as white supremacist threats and hand gestures. Everyone remains safe, and Crockett praised the U.S. Capitol Police for their rapid intervention. She emphasized that such events cannot become the norm, linking the episode to a broader climate where political violence is being fueled from the very top. Crockett, a former trial lawyer turned congresswoman representing Texas's 30th district encompassing parts of Dallas and surrounding areas, has built a national profile through her outspoken criticism of corruption, inequality, and what she sees as divisive leadership. Her statement highlighted the personal risks. Some folks have questioned why I need security. This is why. Every time I speak truth, stand up for my constituents, or call out corruption, the threats get louder and more dangerous. She directly critiqued inflammatory rhetoric from figures like President Donald Trump, noting his recent comments targeting political opponents as contributing to an environment where hate shows up sometimes right at our door. The next day, Crockett issued a follow-up. Capitol Police investigated and confirmed no ongoing threat. Supporters flooded her office with messages of concern, while civil rights groups and progressive allies amplified her call for vigilance. The Congressional Black Caucus and organizations like the NAACP framed it as part of persistent challenges faced by black women in politics, intimidation rooted in racism and sexism. Media coverage spanned outlets. Progressive sources like the Grio highlighted the fuel from the very top, while conservative commentators, such as on Town Hall, expressed skepticism, questioning the details or comparing it to past disputed claims. No public evidence emerged of video footage, arrests, or further escalation. Capitol Police handled the matter discreetly, consistent with protocols for threats against members. Reports indicate the individual was addressed on site, and the situation de-escalated without physical harm. Yet the incident reignited national conversations about the surge in threats against lawmakers. Capitol Police data shows thousands of cases, annually over 9,000 in recent years, ranging from online harassment to in-person confrontations. Experts attribute this spike to polarized discourse, social media amplification, and events like January 6, 2021. For Crockett, this wasn't isolated. As a prominent voice on oversight committees, she's clashed publicly on issues from domestic extremism to government accountability. In hearings, she's pressed officials on white supremacy within law enforcement and society. The timing amplified scrutiny. It followed Trump's social media posts labeling certain Democrats' actions as punishable by death, prompting Democratic leadership to seek enhanced protections. Broader context reveals why such incidents resonate deeply. Threats disproportionately affect women and minorities in Congress. Black lawmakers, in particular, report heightened risks tied to racist backlash. Crockett's resilience shone through. "I will not be intimidated. I will continue to show up for the people of Texas' 30th Congressional District." In interviews and town halls back home in Dallas, she expanded on the fear adrenaline pumping yet channeled into resolve. "Fear is real," she told constituents, "but backing down tells bad actors that intimidation works. And it affects everyday people without security, neighbors, workers facing hate without backup." The event prompted practical responses. Capitol Police reviewed protocols for office building incidents, emphasizing quick identification of threatening behavior. Bipartisan calls emerged for better funding and training to combat extremism. Some members introduced resolutions condemning hate symbols in the Capitol complex, though passage stalled amid partisan divides. Politically, it boosted Crockett's profile. Known for viral moments like grilling witnesses or defending progressive policies she embodied, refusing to shrink from controversy. Supporters praised her transparency. Critics debated motivations. No involvement from other lawmakers, like Florida Republican Cory Mills, unrelated despite separate controversies, appeared in reports. Fallout extended to public discourse on rhetoric's consequences. Crockett argued selective outrage over free speech ignores when it masks intimidation. When leaders promote hate, hate shows up, she reiterated. Conservatives countered that overbroad claims chill expression, citing past hoaxes. Balanced views from outlets like Newsweek and The Hill noted rising threats as factual, urging de-escalation across aisles. Months later, as 2025 closed, the incident underscored democracy's fragility. Lawmakers serve amid risks most citizens never face yet persist for public good. Crockett transformed vulnerability into advocacy, pushing for unity over division and stronger safeguards against extremism. In a Dallas town hall, a young constituent asked how she stayed composed. Crockett replied candidly, "I was scared anyone would be. But anger at injustice fueled me more. If I let fear win, it silences not just me, but everyone facing unchecked hate." She connected it personally. Threats hit harder for those without platforms or protection. This happens daily to ordinary folks in workplaces, schools, communities. Often, excuses get made instead of action. We must change that for everyone deserving safety. This episode also highlighted institutional responses. Enhanced security for targeted members became routine. Discussions on balancing First Amendment rights with safety intensified. Protests are protected, but deliberate intimidation crosses lines. Crockett's career trajectory accelerated. Teasing higher ambitions, like a potential Senate run, she positioned as a fighter against corruption and division. Polls showed mixed electoral prospects, but her base energized around authenticity. Ultimately, the incident served as a wake-up call. In polarized times, words carry weight capable of inspiring or inciting. As Crockett put it in a widely shared interview, "You can protest outside my door, but you can't silence truth inside the chamber. Hate has no place here, and neither does cowardice in calling it out." Democracy thrives when voices endure despite threats. Crockett's handling transparent, resolute, forward-looking exemplified that. It reminded us, standing up isn't always convenient, but it's essential. If this deep dive into Jasmine Crockett's response to a reported hate-driven threat and its lessons on resilience amid rising tensions moved you, hit like and subscribe for more balanced breakdowns of pivotal political moments. Comment below, how should leaders and institutions better address escalating threats in our democracy? Share this with anyone committed to civility and courage in public life. Your support keeps these important stories alive. You won't believe how the stakes for public officials' safety have skyrocketed in today's hyper-polarized political climate. In late November 2025, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the fiery Texas Democrat who's become a national voice for accountability and progressive values, faced a chilling real-world reminder of those risks. On November 20, an individual showed up at her Washington, D.C. office in the Cannon House office building and, according to her official statement, made white supremacist threats and hand gestures. The incident ended without harm. Everyone was safe thanks to the quick action of U.S. Capitol Police, but it sent shockwaves through political circles and reignited urgent debates about the dangers elected officials face, especially women of color in Congress. Before we break down the full context, the response, and why this moment underscores deeper issues in American democracy. Hit that subscribe button. These stories aren't just headlines. They're about the real human toll of divisive rhetoric and the courage required to keep serving amid escalating threats. The Cannon House office building is a hub of legislative activity where history meets the daily grind of governance. Staffers navigate crowded hallways with stacks of files, members rush to votes, and the air hums with policy discussions. It's meant to be a secure space for democracy's workers, professional, procedural, and protected. Yet, on that Thursday afternoon in November 2025, the building became the site of an unsettling confrontation that highlighted how fragile that security can feel. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 30th District, a diverse area including much of Dallas, released a statement that evening detailing the event. Today an individual showed up to my D.C. office and made white supremacist threats and hand gestures. Everyone is safe, and I want to thank Capitol Police for their swift response. She didn't mince words about the broader implications, declaring, "But let me be crystal clear, this cannot become the norm." Crockett tied the incident directly to what she described as a toxic national discourse, pointing fingers at inflammatory language from the highest levels of leadership. "We're living in a time where political violence is being fueled from the very top," she wrote, referencing recent comments from President Donald Trump that had targeted Democratic lawmakers. The timing added fuel to the fire. Just hours earlier, Trump had amplified posts accusing several Democrats of seditious behavior, punishable by death, in response to a video urging military personnel not to follow unlawful orders. House Democratic leadership quickly contacted Capitol Police and the Sergeant-at-Arms to bolster protections for those members. Crockett's incident, coming on the heels of that rhetoric, felt to many like a tangible manifestation of escalating hostility. Crockett, a former public defender and civil rights attorney, has never shied away from tough fights. Elected in 2022, she's quickly risen as a prominent critic on issues like government oversight, racial justice, and domestic extremism. Her viral moments grilling witnesses in hearings, calling out hypocrisy have made her a target for both praise and vitriol. In September 2025, during a Judiciary Committee hearing, she pressed then FBI Director nominee Kash Patel on white supremacy, stating she felt unsafe as a black woman in America amid rising right-wing threats. That boldness, supporters say, is why she needs enhanced security. Critics sometimes dismiss her warnings as overblown. Capitol Police confirmed they responded promptly, investigated, and found no ongoing threat. Details about the individual identity, exact gestures, or charges remained limited, consistent with protocols for such cases. No video emerged publicly, and the matter was handled discreetly. Yet Crockett's transparency turned it into a rallying point. Civil rights groups like the NAACP and the Congressional Black Caucus condemned the event as part of a pattern targeting black elected officials. Progressive outlets amplified her message about rhetoric's consequences, while some conservative voices expressed skepticism, questioning specifics or framing it within broader debates on free speech versus intimidation. This wasn't Crockett's first brush with threats. Like many lawmakers, especially minorities and women, she's navigated a surge in hostility. U.S. Capitol Police reports show threats against members skyrocketed over 9,000 cases in recent years, many tied to partisan fury. Black women in Congress often bear the brunt, racist, sexist attacks online and off. Crockett has spoken openly about the personal cost, explaining in town halls why security is non-negotiable. "Some folks have questioned why I need security," she noted in her statement. "This is why. Every time I speak truth, stand up for my constituents, or call out corruption, the threats get louder and more dangerous." The incident sparked immediate calls for action. Democratic leaders pushed for reinforced protocols in congressional buildings, including better training on identifying hate symbols and quicker de-escalation. Bipartisan discussions emerged on funding for member protection, though partisanship stalled broader reforms. Resolutions condemning hate in the Capitol complex circulated, but support varied along party lines. Media coverage was extensive and divided. Progressive sources like the Grio and Axios highlighted Crockett's resilience and linked it to Trump's words. Mainstream outlets like Newsweek and The Hill reported factually, noting the rise in threats and Crockett's vow, "I will not be intimidated. I will continue to show up." Conservative commentators, such as on Town Hall and Outkick, raised doubts, comparing it to past disputed claims or accusing exaggeration for political gain. No evidence contradicted Crockett's account, but the polarized lens shaped narratives. In follow-up interviews and statements, Crockett expanded on the fear and the resolve it ignited. At a Dallas town hall shortly after, constituents asked how she stayed calm. "I was scared anyone would be," she admitted candidly. But fear can't win. If I back down, it signals to others that threats work. And this doesn't just affect me, it hits everyday people facing hate without protection in jobs, schools, neighborhoods. She connected it to systemic issues, unchecked extremism emboldened by selective outrage over free speech. Crockett's background as a trial lawyer shines in these moments. Trained to confront adversity head-on, she channels adrenaline into advocacy. Her district, diverse and urban, appreciates that directness, re-electing her comfortably while she builds a national profile. Rumors swirled of bigger ambitions, like a potential Senate run in 2026, especially as Texas Democrats eyed opportunities amid GOP infighting. The broader fallout touched on institutional changes. Capitol Police reviewed guidelines for office incidents, emphasizing rapid response to gestures or symbols signaling hate. Experts weighed in on balancing First Amendment rights. Protests are protected, but targeted intimidation crosses into threats. Lawmakers from both sides quietly acknowledged the risks. Some Republicans expressed private concern, though public unity proved elusive. Months later, as 2025 wound down, the event lingered as a symbol. Crockett transformed it into fuel for her work, pushing bills on extremism monitoring, advocating for vulnerable communities, and calling for leadership that unites rather than divides. In a widely shared reflection, she said, "You can show up at my door with hate, but you can't silence the work inside these halls. Threats won't stop truth-telling." This episode also illuminated disparities in how threats are perceived. Women and minorities report higher volumes, often laced with bigotry. Studies show black female lawmakers receive disproportionately vicious harassment. Crockett's experience joined a litany from death threats to doxing that underscores why many need taxpayer-funded security details. Public reaction varied by echo chamber. Supporters flooded her office with encouragement, praising her strength. Online, hashtags trended in solidarity. Detractors debated details, but the core fact threats are rising found broad agreement. Polls showed Americans worried about political violence, post-January 6 and amid heated cycles. For Crockett personally, it reinforced her path. From public defender to Congress, she's fought for the overlooked. This incident, alarming as it was, showcased her refusing to shrink. In interviews, she stressed collective responsibility. When leaders spread hate, hate arrives. We need commitment to unity, not division. As threats evolve with social media amplification and real-world bleed-over, institutions adapt slowly. Enhanced funding, better tech for monitoring, cross-aisle cooperation. All on the table, but gridlock hinders progress. Ultimately, Crockett's story is one of resilience in democracy's trenches. Public service demands sacrifice. In polarized times, it includes personal safety. She emerged stronger, vowing continued fight for constituents. The American people deserve leaders who stand firm, she said. In a final town hall Q&A, a young woman asked about fear's role. Crockett replied, "Fear is human. But anger at injustice? That's fuel. If we let intimidation silence us, democracy loses. So we speak louder for everyone without a platform." This incident, though resolved peacefully, serves as a stark warning. Rhetoric has consequences, words can incite. As Crockett put it, hate shows up when promoted. Courage shows up when we refuse to hide. Democracy endures through those who persist despite risks. Crockett exemplifies that, turning threat into testament. If this in-depth exploration of Jasmine Crockett's encounter with alleged hate threats, her unflinching response, and the larger lessons on safety, rhetoric, and resilience in politics inspired or informed you, smash that like button and subscribe for more thorough, balanced dives into the moments shaping our nation. Comment your thoughts. How can we better protect public servants while preserving open discourse? What role does leadership rhetoric play in curbing violence? Share this with friends who care about democracy's health. Your interaction helps spotlight stories of courage amid chaos.